The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, this is Greg Stumpf. I'm with the Meteorological Development Lab, but I'm out here in Norman, Oklahoma, and this is the start of our next virtual laboratory project and community owners meeting. We've got a pretty short agenda for today. We're just going to be looking at the new DXP LifeRay rollout information. Ken Sparrow is going to be presenting that, and our community and project spotlight today is Kate Friedman talking about FV3 GFS. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hand this over to Ken, and he will start talking about the DXP rollout. So Ken should be unmuted and ready to go, and we can see your screen. Are you there, Ken?
I'm here. Sorry, I was muted as well.
Okay.
So, all right. So hopefully you all are aware that we have migrated to DXP, and sorry, it's run. I was testing right beforehand, and this is not letting me here. Okay. Let me close this out, and we'll go to the landing page, and I'll walk you through some of the main changes. So, okay, so let me make this a little bit smaller. So DXP rolled out, and there were, it went well. There were a few issues that we ran into, and we were kind of anticipating that. Overall, I think people have been pleased. We've been getting some nice feedback from people saying they like the look and feel of the new site. But what I wanted to highlight today, and I think we've done this before, but I just wanted to remind people of some of the changes that are here. The user's guide has been updated to handle DXP, and you can always get to that from the help option up here on the upper right, and then go to the user's guide, and then it provides step-by-step procedures for you as owners and within the communities themselves. But let's just go through some of the navigation changes because it's important, because you as owners need to be aware of those. And specifically, something that's new with DXP is what's called the product menu, and you get to that by clicking on this button right here. This expands out, and everything that you need in terms of managing your communities is over here on the left-hand side. And so this is all community specific, and you can then go in to the navigation to look at the pages. If you had private and public pages, you could switch between those. Here it would show both, and then you can go to the specific pages and configure the pages or add child pages. Everything you'd want to do within, from a page perspective, is here on the left-hand side within that product menu. Likewise, if you're wanting to manage your membership, which is something that comes up as a site owner, you can do that by just clicking on the members, going to community membership, and then managing the membership there. And if you wanted to add someone to your community, you could do that. And typically, nothing's changed here with regard to the restricted versus open versus private communities. It's just the look and feel is a bit different, and how you get to the particular functions is a little bit different on the left. If you want to save on some space and you don't need it, you would just click on this menu button again, and that would hide that product menu on the left. Other things that I think are often you're going to be using is this option here to select a community. And so this will, one of the nice things I think about DXP is that it shows you the communities that you've been going to most recently. So I just was at the Virtual Lab support team community. It's a private community that we use. So it's at the top of the list. Likewise, other ones are here. So the ones that you actively are going out to are on this short list. If you have a long list of communities, you can go to My Communities, do a search for those. There is an issue that we're working this week and hopefully should have resolved by the end of the week, and that is this is alphabetical for us as administrators, but it's not, unfortunately, for regular users. So be aware that that is an issue we're aware of, and we're working to fix that issue. But it does allow you to search for those, and then you just basically click on the community to go to that particular community. So let me go out to the Virtual Lab support team because I wanted to illustrate some other changes that are in place. One of the things that I think was not done well within the previous version of LifeRay and VLCS was the workflow regarding adding images to web content. It required that you had to upload the images to the document library and then select the images from the document library itself. Well, now it's more of a standardized workflow. So if I wanted to, let's say, add some new web content to this particular page, I can come up here, click on this plus to add, and then I can say if I want to add new content, I could just do here, go to type in basic web content, and that's going to allow me to add it. I can give a test name since we're just testing. The other significant change is the editor. So it's now we're using an inline editor. It's called Alloy Editor, and this is it takes a little bit of getting used to, but overall it's much better. One thing that you may be like, well, how do I do certain things? So if I wanted to start typing in here, and I want to make test a hyperlink, well, how would you do that? You just highlight it. This pops up, and then you can come into here and link that. And then you can type in whatever that's going to go to. Likewise, how would you add images or to this? You would click on this plus, come up here, go into here. This allows you to select a file. And you can select things from the document library, but you can also go in and select files directly from your computer. And so you can click on this, go into a particular file, upload it directly. So that's much more intuitive. It's much easier to work through. So that's something that we want to make sure that you're aware of. If you need to look at the source, you can click on this little icon there, and then it's going to show you the source code so you can modify the source itself. Sometimes there are cases where the WYSIWYG editor doesn't do a good job, or you just want to be in the HTML, and so that allows you to do it there. So that's a quick summary of the web content or the WYSIWYG editor and adding images, and those are some of the main changes. So are there any, I guess we could open it up for questions at this point. You can also go back to the home page at any point in time. Oh, I guess I should highlight one last thing, and that is that we heard loud and clear that there was a concern or there was an issue over the ease at which you could switch between the private and public pages within the community if it had both. So what we do now is we list out the pages that you're on. So in this case, these are the private pages for the main Virtual Lab community. And if you wanted to go to the public pages, you could click on this. Takes a little getting used to because you're clicking on the private, but we basically have overloaded it. So it's a quick way of switching between the public and private pages. So likewise, if you're on the public, you can click on this and get right back to the private pages. So that's there. We did make some changes in addition to the search function. So if I come in here and search for some string, it's going to come up with a result set. We made this a simplified type view. So for most users, that's all they really want to see. But if you care about the different facets of the search, so in other words, you can click on here on the advanced view, and this is more similar to what's in 6.2, but better. And this then allows you to come in and select the time frame of the entry. You can click on the asset type, and so you can come into here and select, okay, well, I only wanted to see things that are in, for example, the Oklo community. I wanted to restrict this to web content, articles, or maybe I was focused on documents. So you can do that, and then it'll refine that search. So if you want to really dive in and filter on it, you can do that by clicking on the advanced, but the default now is simple, and simple will hopefully meet the needs of most people and keep that more streamlined. So I think I wanted to keep it to 10 minutes, and I think I've done that. So are there any questions concerning DXP?
If there are any questions, go ahead and use the raise your hand feature or the question feature on the control panel. And Steve Smith, I've unmuted you because we started a couple minutes before you came in, and I was wondering if you had some additional words, welcome message, or anything like that for the audience.
Thanks, Greg. I think basically to reiterate, the DXP is now a reality, but we still have, I think, a lot of work to do in bringing up the VLab users and especially the project and community owners to, community owners really, to become comfortable with it and adept at exploiting all the new stuff that's in there. So this is going to be an ongoing process, and I want to encourage people to don't hesitate to get in touch with us if you run into issues with the DXP and understanding it, or trying to do something, or something you may find in your community that's changed that you don't understand. So yes, brought up the consultation. We do those. So if you want to set up the time to do an in-depth session on trying to understand a particular aspect of DXP and how you could exploit it or whatever, you can go ahead and request that consultation, or you can just send an email to the vlab.admin@noaa.gov and do that as well. We ourselves are still coming to understand, all the capabilities that are there and becoming, comfortable as well in using those, etc. So it's very much we're all in the same boat, hopefully sailing out to a glorious tropical island where we'll be happy and etc. But that all said, this is really a big change for the better, and will allow us to deliver new and important services for the VLab users that we weren't able to do before. And I think we're already seeing some of the benefits. I think I'll leave it at that. But if there are any questions, I can take those as well.
So any questions for Ken or Steve? You can use the raise your hand feature or question feature in the control panel. And while we're waiting for questions, Ken, is there any other news about the VLab that you would like to share?
So, DXP has been a big effort. We're wrapping up, a few remaining cleanup issues with regard to DXP that have come up. And we're looking at, we've kind of set some other things aside for a while. So we're going to be investing more energy into, there are some plugins that I know we've been talking about putting in place on Redmine. And so we'll be addressing those in the coming weeks. We have a backlog of things we've been wanting to do to streamline the process to make the virtual lab support team more efficient and the tasks that we're doing. So we're putting, it's been an opportunity to create some nice features within this, that allow us to look at the logs and things without accessing. Those aren't things that really necessarily help you guys out. They will in that it'll make it quicker for us to be able to do our job in creating the communities and creating the new projects and answering questions and things. So we're looking at ways to streamline that process. So those are, I guess, that's kind of where we're headed at the moment.
Hey Ken, did you want to address the search function?
Yeah, I talked about it. I did talk about it. Was there something specifically you wanted me to talk about?
You went through that at the beginning. I jumped in a little bit late, so if you did, then there's no need.
Yeah. So I talked about and showed that there's a simplified search now, and went through that.
Okay.
So yeah. So and one thing to note too, this is something that we haven't advertised, but LifeRay. So we're using something called Elasticsearch with LifeRay, and we had actually migrated to that about a year ago. But with this upgrade to DXP, it went to a more recent version of Elasticsearch. And right before the upgrade to DXP, they released the most recent, or it's a much more advanced version that that has higher performance and allows us to do some additional things. It was too much to bite off at the last minute. It literally came in a couple of days before we upgraded. But we'll be looking at that and moving forward with upgrading that to that newest version of Elasticsearch, and that should improve performance even more so. So we're excited by that, and there are also some things we're excited by that we can potentially do with dashboarding and things like that we haven't had a chance to explore yet. So I guess the only other thing I did not talk about that I think is worth mentioning is that the NOAA projects registry, as part of this, we pretty much had to port everything. One of the things that we had to port that was there before were reports, and unfortunately the portlet we were using to support that wasn't available within DXP, but Mike Giebler, one of our senior engineers, took the opportunity to create a Jasper report engine, which I think it's a much cleaner way of doing things. And so this is something that we might be exposing to more people and you as community owners in the future. If you've got a need to do certain type of reports based upon the data that's being stored within your community, let us know. And so there's a reports engine, and so this allows us, for example, to come into here, and so there's a generic report, or not generic, but it's a report that is written and it doesn't require coding, and it basically is uploaded to the system, and then we can come into here and click on run, and it'll then render the graphics of that report based upon that. So it's a very flexible framework, and I'm excited by this, and I think there's a lot of potential in the future for us to leverage these capabilities in a more widespread area. For us, our first step was use this tool to kind of repeat what we had done with the NOAA Projects Registry, but there's much more that could be done here. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Ken. Any questions before we switch over? Okay, so our next item on the agenda is our Community and Project Spotlight, and that's going to be presented by Kate Friedman. And Kate, you are now muted are unmuted, and I'm going to go ahead and switch you, making you the presenter. So we should see Kate's screen here in a second.
Great. Can you see it now?
And see it well. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Greg. So my name is Kate Friedman, formerly Kate Howard. For those of you who met me before the beginning of the year, I just changed my name. I am from EMC. I work on the, well, formerly known as the GFS team, now known as the FB3 GFS team, as well as our new workflow team, where we're working on the next generation of the workflow for EMC and then NCEP and NOAA as a wider community. So VLab has been very important to us in collaborating between not just the developers in-house at EMC, but now that we're extending out into more of a community model framework, we needed something that the entire community and all of NOAA could access. So VLab has been wonderful for this, particularly the Git Redmine side, since we used to work on Subversion, which was an internal server at EMC, and now this is much more open. So let me show you guys our community. This is the public-facing page that anyone can view, regardless of whether you can sign into VLab or not. We had to do this since we have a lot of outside community members. We needed a way for them, or a landing page for them to come in and see some information, particularly information on our public releases that we've been doing every year. And then information on the right side here to help them get access to VLab if they're not a NOAA partner, and then if they are, how to get to our public side. So on our private side here. So on our public-facing side, we have a general announcements section. We have a training that we're planning for the summer, and we did a version 1 release in March. So that's the information that we have out front right now. When we do our next release, this will change. I imagine there'll be version 2. So let's go into the private side of things now that Ken has taught us that I can click on this link up here, which is amazing. Thank you. This is our private side. So this is what everybody who has access to VLab as a NOAA affiliate can see this. Somewhat similar information. Had the same portlet that gets dropped in here with our public release version 1 information. Top left here, just some general information on what you can find in the community. We have a wiki, we have a forum, we have code release page, access page. I'm going to go through each of these, just an easy way to guide people to what they want. On the top right here, I just added this last week actually. This is for our training that we're planning next month. And some general contact information. The FB3 GFS is a huge, complex system, particularly to the folks who take care of production at NCO. It's not just the forecast model. It's really many pieces working together. We have the workflow at the top. We have the contacts for the workflow. We have NEMS infrastructure and the actual FB3 code underneath. And we also use the GSI and POST for the data assimilation and post-processing. So we have all of these various submodule components that go into making the FB3 GFS, so we have the contact information for all of those. Because anybody who comes in and requests access to the FB3 GFS has to get access to all of the submodules. So if we're talking about access, we have this page here. Once folks have access to VLab and join the community, they want to get access to the actual code and the workflow to run it themselves. They come to this page. This is something new for us. We have a software license now since we're much more of a community model. So folks will read the license. And we have 2 forms down here. One for the actual forecast code itself, and the other for the workflow project. Both of these come to myself and the code managers so that we can initiate the access and grant it and go from there for the different users. This has worked quite well for us. We're going to continue with this going forward. So we have a wiki. We haven't used it as much as we'd like. That's mainly just a time factor since we're also busy getting ready for the upgrade at the end of the year. One piece that I have personally been working on a lot is a section on how to run the model, particularly how to clone and build it, set it up, prepare initial conditions, put together an experiment, and run the experiment. This is a sub-page of our wiki. I would say this is the most used section of the wiki right now. We also have a slide deck with all the same information. Another part that we have is the forums, but it's also not been used that much. We haven't really been able to figure out why folks aren't as interested in coming to the forum. They just keep emailing us instead. Probably have to get a little bit more pushy with this. We have a whole category here for questions on the version 1. We haven't had any threads posted, so we're trying to figure out if this is something we want to push more or move away from. If there's anybody else in the meeting who's had trouble getting users to use their forums, I'd love to know what they might have done to get that used. So we have a section here for our code releases. This table will grow with time. We also have sub-pages for these. So there's one for each of the version releases that we've done. This is essentially the same exact web content portlet that you see on the home page, both the private and the public side. This way we have a single portlet that we can drop in anywhere, and it's the same information, and we only have to change it in one place. So we've got a training section. The top here is a quick announcement about the training we're planning next month. Should be noted for anybody who's interested in attending this that we may push this to July. We're still trying to figure that out, but for now, we're looking at the middle of June. We have a table here of a lot of our past training documents. A lot of this was for version 0. So the version 1 information will be added to this soon. Similar vein, we have our document library with all the various subcategories, training documents, scientific documents, and version 1 and 0 release documents. This is something that we never had before we had VLab. It was difficult to get our documentation all put together. We're still getting better and better at that every month. So it's nice to have a single place to drop all of this and for people to come and find it. So that's the crux of our community. The last drop down I have here for easy navigation between the two sides, I put up a link for each of our sub-module projects so folks can hop over to Redmine quickly from here. Okay, already had that open. So here. So let's take a look quickly at how we're using Redmine and Garrett side of things. I'll just show Garrett quickly. There's really not much to show here beyond the fact that we're using Garrett for our code review. It's worked quite well for us. Any changes that get pushed up to the master first go through Garrett. We do the reviews, and then it makes it into the master. So that's been quite nice for us. So on the Redmine side, we have quite a large community of users. It's constantly growing. Actually, as I'm sitting here, a new request for access just came in. So we get at least 5 or so of those a week. We use most of these functions here, not as much as I'd like us to, but with other things, it comes down to how much time we have to dedicate to this kind of stuff. Management has been pushing us to use this more and more, so we're slowly getting used to this. We regularly use issues for updating the workflow system. You can see we're porting to various machines here, so we have a ticket for porting to Gaia, porting to the Dell that just opened up for us. We're not really using the calendar right now. We have a new code manager coming in for this project probably next month or July, who's very eager to start using more of these features. So if you were to look back at this community later this year, you'd see us using it much more. We do use the news. So when there's a big change to the master, a news item is sent here. Anybody who is watching it will get an email. Let's see, we don't really have any documents. There's one technical document in here based on one of our submodule projects, how you put changes there. Let's see, nothing in the wiki, not really any files. Then the big section is the repository. So you can see all of our changes here. So like I said, we're using a lot of this, certain sections every day, quite regularly. Other sections, not so much. It really comes down to documentation and time. There's a couple of us who are owners, so I use the settings every day to add new members. Let's see. So I think that's pretty much everything that we use on a regular basis and our community on VLab. So if there are any questions about things we're using or any questions about the community, I'd be happy to take those at this time.
So Kate, this is Greg. This is a great overview of how you have made really good access to both sides of the VLab and use those to your advantage for your project. As we do with all these sessions, we record these sessions, but this one in particular, I think would be a great overview for folks who want to take advantage of all that the VLab has to offer in their project. One comment that I had that also Tatiana Gonzalez made with regard to your forums on the collaboration side, we can set up forums to have an email interface. So that way, if you get your folks to send an email to a specific mailing list address, it'll automatically get posted to the forum, and that's nice because then it's indexed and archived, and you can look back at old conversations and things like that. So I would suggest go ahead and make a request to the VLab admins to help set that up for you guys. So using that.
Yeah, awesome. Yep. I'm writing a note down to myself right now to do that.
Okay. So I
Awesome.
see.
Thank you.
Let's see, Steve Smith, you've got your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, just echo what Greg was saying, Kate. This is, and I know you've been, at VLab from pretty much the ground floor, and appreciate your, working on this very strategic effort inside of NCEP and EMC, and you're really going to town here. So it really, I think, is exemplary of what can be done to support a very important project in this case, using, as Greg said, pretty much everything the VLab has to offer. So, kudos to you and your team on that. And I think you deserve a lot of credit. I know you deserve a lot of credit. One couple things I wanted to ask you was, do you you mentioned this when you're in your overview, are there any explicit links now to the larger modeling community in terms of GitHub.com, or and are those planned? And can you speak to that particular aspect?
Yeah, actually, first, thank you for your earlier comments. It's nice to hear that folks see the work that's going into this. As part of our version 1 release at the end of March, actually, I don't want to open this right. Okay, let's see. For the first time, we set up the NOAA EMC community on GitHub and created a repository for the FV3 GFS. And you can see my name here. We posted our public release copy here. So it's now available to the wider community. I think anybody can get this. We have a license or a couple licenses down inside here for legal reasons, and I'm just noticing that. Oh, that's just me. Okay, we actually did have one person. I think it's closed now. Yeah, we had one person use an issue here to ask us about our open source license, and we responded with, yes, we have a active license version 2. Here it is. And they said, thank you, and they closed the ticket. So this is already being used, which is really nice. And I know there's been a couple folks on Gaia and actually Jet who cloned this, and we're testing it already. So we now have a presence on GitHub.
Fantastic. And so, but at the moment, it's limited to you guys pushing out the latest version out there. There's no yet process in place where users can develop things either for the NGGPS or whatever project and and push them to you, or have you review them in Garrett or something like that?
Correct. Yeah, this is our first step. We have a lot of stuff going on in-house right now, so we don't have too much time to dedicate to this, but the plan is to, because right now it's pulls only, no pushes, but we did set this repository up in such a way that we can move to accepting changes, branches, forks, and whatnot. The plan going forward would be to make this more of like the public repository for community members who may not have access to VLab. We have a lot of discussions to do about that still, though, because this is still very new to folks in EMC. There's only a handful of us who know how to work with GitHub, even though it's quite easy. And it's a matter of finding the time to sit down and decide how we want to do this and make sure it's set up properly, and get the commit procedures in place, and advertise it to the community so that they can contribute to this.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's definitely where we're going.
Yeah, so I get the feeling that you're going to be in high demand as a subject matter expert on this. Another question. So do you have Google Analytics, or have we set it up, for your VLab pages or your public page, in order to see, and this question I may be asking to Ken too in the same time, so that the amount of usage could be tracked there in terms of this community, since it's such an important community?
Yeah, we don't have that right now, but I do remember discussing that with management several months ago. So, I mean, it depends on how much work would be involved in setting that up, but I would definitely be nice to see, because I don't know how busy any of these pages are at any time, and who we're reaching.
Right.
That would be nice.
So, Ken or Tatiana, do we still have slots available in our own Google Analytics allotment that we could lend to Kate? Ken, you there? Is Ken muted?
Yeah, this is Ken. So I'm looking at their control panel right now for that community, and it does look like we have a dedicated Google Analytics ID for it. So so I think it's just I can send you guys. I don't know, Kate, if you or if there's anyone else that would be interested in seeing that information, I can add you so that you can, and I'll send you the URL so you can go in and basically start exploring the data. So
yeah, please share that. I would love to see it. Thank you.
Okay, all right. I'll send it to you, and then you can forward it on to, or let me know if there's anyone else on the team that should have access. So
yeah, I'll send you an email.
Ken, does that include their public page?
Yeah, it's tied to the community, so it should be both.
Oh, wonderful! So they could actually see the usage on the private and the public.
Correct.
So and I presume I have access to that somehow.
Yeah, you should. So yeah, we can work offline, but okay. Yeah, you should.
All right. Okay, so the other thing, Kate, you were talking about the forums, and I know you already got a good piece of feedback to set up this dedicated email list. The two most active VLab forums I know is the National Blend of Models and the RTMA IRMA site. So I'm subscribed to those forums, and there's a lot of traffic on there. So I can put you in touch with the people who are behind that to give you their impressions about why their forums are active, and maybe there's some pointers there that could help the FE3 group move out. But my gut tells me is that you have certain active users who are posting stuff there all the time, and so the user community for the blend, for example, they see it as a value to subscribe to that forum, and they feel like they're getting the latest information there, and in turn, when they post things, that there's a I guess it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. People get in there, and et cetera, and it grows. But I think key is that there's got to be a core group of people who are actively posting and almost relentlessly posting. That's just my sense of it. So if you're the support team for all this, you got a lot of things to do, but the core users of this model are really, or users or developers or both. They're the ones who I think would lead to a successful forum dynamic, because they're seeing this as the place where they can get that kind of information. So, but I'll put you in touch with the people behind those two forums and pass along your request for tips on that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Is that for the RTMA? Is that Steve Levine?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, he and I actually had a hour-long meeting last month. He wanted to see what we were doing for this community, and he actually showed me his forum. I was quite impressed at how used it is. So, right. And for the blend, it's really Jeff Craven and previously Dave Myrick, but Craven is the one he's like posting there 2-3 times a day sometimes. Wow. But you have various regional and field folks in Weather Service who also post on that one. So in that dynamic, what's happening for the blend is that the developers are posting like new information. The user community, which are the field forecasters, they post examples where the blend output is doing something great or not so great. And so you get this back and forth kind of thing. So it's like a value to both the developers of the blend product as well as the users of it. So that seems to help in making it active. Great. Yes, please put me in touch.
Yeah. Anyway, I think somehow to get we may want to grab you to kind of give this kind of a overview to Dr. Uccellini, because he's always asking questions about how's VLab used, and I think this is probably one of the best examples we have that really gets to all the points, and I think he'd be very impressed by this.
Thank you. Yeah, I would be open for that.
All right, that's all I have, Greg.
We have a question from Brian Moretsky. You're unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, Greg and Kate. This is just an addition to the forums thing, conversation. Already great ideas, good points pointed out. I will say, and again, in regards to the RTMA Irma forum, what's useful about it is with this dedicated email address is Steve or Jacob, who are the RTMA chief developers. They'll put out something, and they'll put it out in an email, and people will respond to that email thread. And it's just like any normal thread. So that's how that forum works, and it works really well. That's just one example. One of the things, and Ken can speak to this more, with the forums we had in the past, and the VIT, Kate, you probably heard yesterday, one of the issues is the subscription. Theoretically, hopefully, you would get any of your members in the community subscribed to the forum. Right now, that's not so easy. But that was how we did the RTMA Irma forum, I believe, in the setup process. And that kind of just makes so that everybody is already getting that information. And so it becomes for you like a place that you can do an announcement in addition to the portlet, the announcement portlet as well. So that's one thing. And then the only other thing, have you found as you were building these pages, was it a lot of work to build the pages? Would you like more functionality, like some of the things I think the VIT's been talking about in terms of more wiki-like functionality? You have a lot of information, and maybe that would help to organize it as well.
Yeah, actually, I was the person who Steve to submit that ticket about the wiki, because I think that the wiki, I think, is the only feature that we've been using that I haven't liked working with. We had a wiki, if I can show it here. We had one on our internal server that we really liked the look of. And if we could get something closer to this, oh wow, why is that space there? Yeah, I mean, we got really used to having, this is the old version, I actually need to port this over to VLab stuff, but this was the old page that everybody would go to for the GFS, and they would get all of the information that they need, and this really had everything in it. This was a massive amount of information that I've struggled to start bringing into this wiki because it wasn't quite as user-friendly. So I think one of the things that we didn't like about it was the fact that, actually, now that I'm looking at it, I need to fix this after the most recent update, that the child pages got pushed down to the bottom. So I think the wiki, I would love to use this more. I've had to kind of move away from it a little bit because it wasn't as user-friendly. So if we could beef up the wiki and get the like the table of contents on the left side like we were talking about, that would be amazing.
Sounds good. And anything else that you learned as you were building this? Was it just you building it, or?
Yeah, I think it's, except for a couple people who've come in and dropped a few things, I've done probably 95% of this, and I enjoy this kind of work, so I'm gonna say this was enjoyable. It wasn't too difficult. I loved the fact that I could build a portlet or update it outside of this. When we were getting ready for the public release, we built all of these portlets a couple weeks out. And then when it came to the day that we were releasing, I just simply switched them out. We went live very quickly, and so we had everything preloaded. As I said, the web content is very easy to use. Being able to move things around quite easily is really nice. It's a bit of a learning curve for some of the other folks that have tried to edit this. I had one person in particular who came in and made some changes, and I had to come in and redo what she did because it just wasn't done right. But I think it's just, I've done a lot of work on this kind of stuff in my career, so this was easier than I expected it to be, besides the comments I made about the wiki. So anybody who's getting into this, it's I would say a very short but steep learning curve at the beginning, and then really easy after that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. And I don't know if Ken wants to say anything about the subscription thing, but I know we're working on that. So I think in general, so I think that will help as well. But definitely the email, and if you have any questions, I've been involved in that for a few different forums, and I can point you to things and stuff like that. So great.
I'm definitely going to send an email requesting getting the listserv or whatever set up for us, because people, and I'm not sure if it's just an EMC thing, but they get stuck in using emails and not going to forums. So if I can give them the ability to keep using email, then I'll be able to capture them.
Sounds good.
You.
This was all great. Thank you very much, Kate and everybody else. If anyone has any more questions for Kate or Ken or anything else, this is kind of the roundtable part of the owners meeting. Use the raise your hand feature or the question feature, and we'll give you 10 seconds.
Hey, Greg, am I still on?
You are still on.
Yeah. So, Kate, Ken confirmed that you have access to the Google Analytics, and I do too. And so I went in there, and it looks like your usage is growing rapidly, not surprisingly. So, like the number of sessions in April, it was 662 on the LifeRay side, and that was a big jump from about 364 back in March. So it looks like you're growing quite quickly in terms of of that, which is, like I said, not surprising. But there's the thing about this Google Analytics, you can just keep diving down deeper and deeper, and you can examine subpages and all sorts of things that sort of endlessly if you want. so the trick is deciding which things are worth tracking and reporting to management and that sort of stuff. But it seems to be you're up and running.
Awesome. Yeah, that's encouraging to see that we got double the number of visitors after our release. That helps us because we didn't know if people saw the release. So that's really wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
Great, thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Any other questions or comments from anybody else? Okay, looks like we may be done for the call. So again, I want to thank everybody who participated, Kate, Ken, and Steve. We have our next VLab Community and Project Owners meeting scheduled right now for July 11th at the normal time, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, and do the math for the rest of the time zones. So, as I said before, we have recorded this. I will send out a link, a YouTube link, when we have it uploaded. And go ahead and share this, too, with folks that you think might benefit from what you've heard today. So, thank you, everyone, and signing off for now. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.